Richmond's only station to win the Edward R. Murrow Award for overall excellence in news.
We're convinced there's a large number that aren't telling the truth.
What's a lie that's costing taxpayers big bucks? Now a local court clerk reacts to an 8 News investigation that uncovered a loophole in Virginia law allowing criminal defendants to hide assets from the court and get away with it. Thanks for joining us for 8 News at 5:30. I'm Amy Lacey.
And I'm Gene Cox.
$43 million, that is how much money Virginia taxpayers shelled out last year to pay for lawyers for people who claimed they couldn't afford to hire one of their own.
But as 8 News investigative reporter A.J. Legault discovered, many of those getting court-appointed attorneys may not deserve them.
This list of names stretching across the lawn at Chesterfield Courthouse represents just a fraction of the people who applied for and received a court-appointed attorney in Chesterfield General District Court last year, costing taxpayers more than $734,000. When you include the Circuit Court and Juvenile and Domestic Relations Court, the price tag jumps to more than $2 million. Eye-popping.
It really is. It's a big figure.
A big figure that we found is bloated by an untold number of cheats. Criminal defendants who lied on this sworn statement where they're supposed to disclose all their assets.
We're convinced there's a large number that aren't telling the truth.
Leroy Hudson's the General District Court Clerk in Chesterfield. He tells us he's not surprised that our investigation uncovered a number of cases of people lying to the judge about their assets, leaving taxpayers to foot the bill for their lawyer.
Now, I'm not surprised at all. A lot of the people we deal with, they're good at that.
Here's what we found is happening. Defendants listing 0 on their assets form when asked about money in the bank, vehicles, and property owned. We began matching names off the list we obtained of people who received court-appointed attorneys with property records. What we found are numerous instances where people don't fully disclose their real estate assets to the court. We went banging on the doors of some of those defendants who failed to tell the whole truth and nothing but.
Now you say you don't own the home?
Most folks weren't in a hurry to discuss their apparent lie. Others claimed ignorance.
You do own the house, though?
Yes.
Do you know that it's a criminal offense to not list your assets?
I did. No, I didn't, but I did not purposely do that.
Virginia's law is clear. Lie on this sworn statement of indigence when you're charged with a felony and you're guilty of a felony. Lie when you're charged with a misdemeanor and you're guilty of a misdemeanor. But we found it's a law without teeth. Virginia's court-appointed counsel procedures and guidelines manual says the court may, but is not required to verify the estimations given. It's not required, and no one's doing it. So in courtrooms across the Commonwealth, you can lie to the judge and get away with it. Numerous court clerks have told us there's no way they could take the time to verify that every defendant is telling the truth.
It's not feasible. I mean, it's all we can do to run the clerk's office and the courts every day with the staffing we got.
That means it's open season for criminal defendants such as William Lloyd Henry to rip off taxpayers. After each of his arrests in counties across central Virginia, he requested a court-appointed attorney. All of his numerous arrest warrants show his address as 2314 Wickham Road in Bumpus. Real estate that our check of county property records shows he owns free and clear. It's assessed at more than $150,000. But on all the financial statements Henry filled out, he clearly never discloses to the court that he owns real estate. When arrested in August of 2011 for assault, Henry lists his total income as 0. But in fact, he was renting out an apartment in the basement of his home. Signed receipts we obtained show he was paid $600 a month for rent that August, and for numerous months both before and after. At the same time, taxpayers were footing the bill for his attorney fees. Its income never disclosed on court records until this past April, when he lists it only after being charged with threatening to burn out one of his tenants. A tenant in property he still doesn't tell the court he owns. Cases like Henry's and the others we uncovered have many in Virginia's legal system crying foul.
They costing the state and the local governments a lot of money. Is what they're doing, but there's nothing we can do about it at this point.
After seeing the results of our investigation, several state lawmakers have said this is an issue the General Assembly needs to closely look at during the next session. Gene?
AJ, you uncovered another major problem in your investigation into people receiving court-appointed attorneys.
Yeah, that's right, Gene. If you get a court-appointed attorney and are found guilty, you're supposed to pay back the cost of that lawyer. But we found that's simply not happening. Now, for just the last fiscal year, taxpayers paid out more than $43 million for court-appointed lawyers. They were only paid back $16.3 million. That's an outstanding balance approaching $27 million. And breaking it down further locally, in Chesterfield County, the difference between what was paid out in lawyer fees and what taxpayers are in essence still owed is more than $1.2 million. In Henrico, that number is $1,263,000. According to Supreme Court of Virginia records, Mr. Henry, who we profiled in our story, still owes courts in Henrico, Goochland, Louisa, and New Kent nearly $3 grand. Gene?
Thank you, AJ. A lot of money in those loopholes. If you have something for AJ, email ajinvestigates@WRIC.com or find him on Facebook or Twitter.
Now to the latest in the Drew Peterson murder trial. A judge is considering declaring a mistrial. Defense attorneys say one witness's testimony tainted the jury. The judge told prosecutors the testimony was a new low, but won't decide on whether it's a mistrial until later this week. Peterson's charged in the 2004 death of his third wife after his fourth wife went missing in 2007. And developing news now, there has been an explosion at a middle school. It happened just east of Boulder in Colorado. 3 contractors working there were hurt. A school spokesperson says it's possible a hot water heater caused the blast. No students were there because the school was on summer break until August 16th. We will have updates as soon as we know more about what's happening.
Let's turn now to the weather. Here's John with a check. John, I haven't been outside in a while. You'll have to tell me what's going on out there.
It's a little warm out there, but not much in the way of rain, Gene, here across central Virginia. Nearest storms to us are up north of Charlottesville, up towards Greene and Madison County, and a pretty big one just to the south of Lexington. But right now, none of those really have Richmond on their itinerary for this evening here across the area. We're 88 degrees outside, 87 degrees Charlottesville, 86 over in South Hill. If you're headed out this evening well to the west of us, maybe into Louisa, Fluvanna, Buckingham, maybe around 7 or 8 o'clock, we might see something drift through there. Our temperature will be about 79 degrees at 8 p.m. and midnight hour, fair skies over. It's still going to be sticky out there, down to about 75 degrees. Now, down the tropics, the area of cloudiness that we have been watching in the past couple of days, and it's that big blob that's right underneath the clock you see ticking there, has now become Tropical Depression number 5. It's 800 miles to the east of the Windward Islands. Here's the track on the storm. As you can see, expect it to head off towards the west fairly slowly over the next few days, going through the Windward Islands on Friday. Then might become a hurricane sometime around next Monday. It's well to the south of Cuba at that time.
Well, starting today, millions of women won't have to pay a single cent to get some basic health services. Insurance companies are now required to provide the benefits for free as part of President Obama's Affordable Care Act. Legal expert Brian DeWitt is here to answer some of your questions about what it means for you. Brian, thank you for coming in.
Glad to be here.
This is, again, that confusing act. So many of our viewers have questions. Just because it starts today, there are still some exceptions. This isn't meaning that everybody can go out today or tomorrow and get that free care.
That's right. Today is the deadline, but it's not that simple. First of all, if your plan was in place on March 23, 2010, which is the date that President Obama signed the Affordable Care Act into law, these provisions may not apply to you. If your plan has not been changed since that date, it's called a grandfathered plan. And so the preventative care services requirements do not apply to grandfathered plans. If the plan has been modified, then it's a non-grandfathered plan and these provisions do apply. And then second of all, although today is the deadline, the requirement applies to plan years or policy renewals that occur on or after today's date. So many employers, for example, have calendar year plan years. That means their plan year begins on January 1. So these new requirements will not apply to you if you have a calendar year plan until January 1, 2013.
Now, of course, contraception, that is a big part of this that a lot of people are focusing on. In fact, one of our Facebook viewers asked this question. It's also about women's health care here. Does this cover an annual checkup? Is that the case?
It does. In fact, the new requirement provides that the plans must cover at no cost sharing, so no deductible, no co-pays, no co-insurance, an annual well-woman visit.
And here's another one, again, about contraception. We had 2 viewers that answered pretty similar ones. Does it cover all birth control or certain types of birth control? And then another individual asked, does it cover IUDs? What about tying your tubes?
Well, the contraceptives provision requires coverage for any FDA-approved contraceptive device medication, or even sterilization. So it's a sweeping requirement to cover anything approved by the Food and Drug Administration.
And many of this still is a wait and see because there will be some new developments then next year around this time.
That's right. For religious organizations, there's a one-year safe harbor where they do not have to comply until a year from now to let some things sort out, some litigation and some guidance from the government. And then also, this is a continuing renewal with the government, that every year the government produces a list of preventative care services required under the Act, and then those provisions go into effect a year later. So next August we'll have another list of preventative care services required to be covered.
All right. Thank you, Brian, for explaining a few of those things for our viewers tonight. Gene, let's head over to you.
All right, thank you, Amy. A Virginia man accused of killing his family punched his own attorney in court today. WRIC-TV was in court to find out if he's mentally fit for trial after he allegedly shot and killed his uncle, aunt, and cousin in Madison County. The courtroom was evacuated when WRIC attacked his lawyer, but no one was seriously hurt. A California professor apparently wanted to shoot hundreds of high school students with machine guns after his teenage son committed suicide. Emails from Rainier Reinscheid showed he also planned to target administrators who disciplined his son before the boy killed himself. Reinscheid is currently behind bars. In Florida, 100 moviegoers fled from a screening of The Dark Knight Rises after a man yelled, "This is it," during the film. He then left the theater and came back wearing a pair of black gloves. All of this less than 2 weeks after a gunman killed 12 and shot 58 others at a Colorado movie theater. When it was all over, David Escamillo was arrested and charged with disorderly conduct. Altria is saying no thanks to a new Walmart being built in Henrico. We talked to the county about that proposal.
And just when you thought it was safe to eat on a plane, another needle turns up in a sandwich. We'll be right back.
Friday,